What's going on, guys? Vulkan here, and today we have a huge update for Lost Ark. So this is going to affect launch plans for some people, but the good thing is we're getting a lot more content at launch for the Western version. Now, this is the January update that got dropped last night, and packed in here we have quite a few things to go over. So I'm not going to drag this video out and make it longer than it needs to be, but we're going to go through some of these and talk about them. So one, we will have tier 3 end game content available. Up until this point, it was just going to be tier 1 and tier 2, but now we have tier 3 all the way up to Punica. And then we'll get tier 3 dungeons up to Orheha Well, Chaos Dungeons up to stage 3, the Vulkanos Guardian Raid, and the thing that a lot of people have been asking about, level 60 will be the level cap. Now, a lot of people were asking ahead of time, you know, hey, we've been seeing level 60 in GIFs, we've been seeing level 60 in some leaked screenshots, things like that. Does that mean we will get access to tier 3 at launch? And it looks like we finally have our answer, and that is a yes. Now, we need to talk about what amount of tier 3 content we'll have available at launch. So Rox out on the forums confirmed that tier 3 content at launch will be limited so that players will only get their feet wet. They want to introduce Abyss raids to the game sooner rather than later because they are a unique part of Lost Ark and a big draw for players, myself included. These are a big thing that I want to do. So being able to kind of get these right at the start or access to them right at the start is going to be a big win for both Lost Ark and the player base. Now, for future tier 3 content, they will continue adding this post-launch to set a pace of progression, so slowly unlocking things, most likely as they see more and more players reaching a stopping point or getting close to the cap on content. So that's something to look forward to as well. I don't know the cadence of this, if it's going to be quarterly, if it's going to be monthly, if it's going to be, you know, semi-annually, but we will be getting tier 3 content at certain intervals to keep players interested. Now, they did also add a Korean voiceover option. It's a free DLC, so if you really want the original Korean experience, then you can get that as well. They also made it so certain early cutscenes are now skippable, which is music to my ears, especially if you go through it, you know, multiple times on Russian servers, on Korean servers. Now you're here on NA. Being able to kind of skip those early cutscenes, I think, is going to be just that small quality of life improvement. Now, they also said that progression speed has been balanced. They didn't go too deep into this. Now, what I'm thinking this is going to be is smoothing out the 1 to 50 experience, but then also kind of smoothing out the end game experience, right? So once you hit 50 and you start unlocking things, being able to progress from one section to another, one tier to another, balancing that out a little bit. Now, again, I'm not entirely sure what that means. They're specifically vague on that, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see for now. Now, for those of you who are really interested in naming, right, character names, guild names, all of that stuff, there's a pretty big section here on this. So there will be special character restrictions in names. So you can't use special characters, you can't capitalize letters other than the first letter of a name, and there will not be any spaces allowed. Now, names cannot be reused after character deletion. So once you put a name out there and you delete a character, that name is gone forever. So they mentioned that this requires a manual process from Amazon. They're looking into it for the future. But for now, if you make Vulkan and then you're like, oh, I don't want a bard named Vulkan, so you delete that one, Vulkan is gone forever. So that's something to be very cautious of. Name your characters what you truly want those names to be. And if you want to reuse that name at all in the future, just know you cannot. Now, guild names are going to be between 2 and 20 characters, character names between 2 and 16 characters, and we already know that they're not offering name reservation before launch, so have these things written down, be able to kind of roll through it. Their piece of advice is make sure to have your characters kind of preset, know the settings that you want. I want this hairstyle, you know, number 5, I want this beard, I want this thing, I want this, and that way you can fly through character creation, get to the point where you can name your character, and then go ahead and roll out. So those are the tips and tricks they have, but let's keep this thing moving and let's talk about Founder Pack. So all the Founder Pack contents except for the title and the 3-day head start will stack. So you can buy every one of those and have a ton of materials. Now these are only available before launch. So you will need to purchase these before. If you try to purchase them after, they won't be available. So keep that in mind. Now, Founders Packs, once you purchase them and you get into the game, you will be able to redeem them by going into your product inventory, then your character inventory, and then opening the skin packs on the character you want to use them for. So that is another big key thing. If you want a specific skin, make sure to use it on the character you want that skin for. This is not going to be one of those things where it just gives you everything and puts it all out there. So apparently you have to be specific about what character you use. Now, founder skins are only available to the 15 launch classes, so remember that as well. You're not going to get anything if they add the artist or the scouter. They will not come with founder skins. They'll come with other skins, most likely in the cash shop, but for now, the founders packs will only have whatever classes are there at launch. Also, this is a big thing. There will be no power pass available at launch, which is the boost that we had access to in the beta. Now, this would send one character to level 50 after you reached Vern, I believe. So this will not be available. This is going to change a lot of people's plans, including mine. We will have to level every single main and every alt from 1 to 50 until that power pass becomes available down the road. So just keep that in mind. That will not be available. So if you planned on using that pretty heavily, it will not be there. And we got 2 additional things before we're wrapping up here. So in terms of guild ownership, one question they got asked was if a guild leader leaves or becomes inactive, or there's something that happens where they're no longer logging into the game, after 10 days of inactivity, the guild will shift to the deputy of the guild, and that person will become the new guild leader. So there is a system in place, that way you can't have all of these kind of dead, inactive guilds, and I'm assuming it'll probably just roll down from there, just as a sequence of events. So if the deputy then, goes inactive, it'll go to the next deputy, so on and so forth. Now, the last thing I want to talk about here are time-limited events. These are available in Korea and Russia. They will come to NA in the future, but right now they will not be available at launch. So next week, let's talk plans, guys. So another announcement is coming from Lost Ark next week that will have a ton of very important information. It's going to have launch day instructions for players, a launch server list so we can figure out what server we want to be on, information about weekly reset times, and the exact server open and pre-download times. And then they will also share the business model, roadmap, and patch notes before launch. So we're gonna have a ton of stuff coming next week, and then probably very shortly before launch the week later. So this is gonna be a very hectic time. I will try to make videos for all of these things. That way you guys can stay up to date. But for now, here's everything we know. We're getting tier 3 at launch. We have some really interesting quality of life improvements. I want to hear from you guys, so let's start talking in the comments section below. As always, thank you so much for all the support. This has been Vulkan, and I'll talk to you guys next time.
Sound off one and all, everybody. Don't take what you openly handed. Reach up and grab the world by the hand and watch what comes along.